It's the Brad and John Show.
The Brad and John Show for Monday, December 9th. This is B Block, which means we start this about 7:20 or so. I'm along with John Combis. John, I saw an interesting video over the weekend, and the guy was saying, who is the biggest loser, we're talking nationally, who is the biggest loser from the 2024 election cycle? Who do you think would be the biggest loser?
The little midget guy who wears sweatpants to the White House from the Ukraine. What's his name? Little manlet.
He's not very tall, is he? He's sort of a short dude. Okay.
Yeah. Zelensky. I would say Zelensky. Domestically, I would say probably the cast of The View.
Okay. You know what this guy said? And he gave a very interesting explanation of his thoughts. He said the biggest loser from the 2024 election was Barack Obama.
Ooh, why is that?
Well, he chronicled the whole thing, and it's pretty funny because he had some clips. This is a YouTube thing I watch, and he had some clips, and I don't know if you remember this or not. This was what is the dinner they had? They just had it where remember it was the deal where Trump showed up, but Kamala didn't. It's the
was it the Al Smith dinner?
No, it wasn't. Okay, that's right. She didn't show up for the Al Smith. But what's the one where they do is the Washington Correspondents' Dinner?
Yeah, the Correspondents' Dinner. Yeah, the White House Correspondents' Dinner.
Okay, this was when Obama was in office, and he was roasting Donald Trump, who was in the audience. And he said, do you remember this crazy quote?
No, I don't remember this at all. No.
Oh, something to the effect, I'll see if I can find it, something to the effect that, you know, Donald Trump may be a lot of things, but there's one thing he will never be, and you know what Obama said he will never be?
What, president?
Yes, Obama said.
Oh, nice, yeah.
There's one thing that Donald Trump will never be. He'll never be the president of the United States. Okay, so this guy's cutting up all these different things. And it's funny because I do remember this, that he said that Obama is probably the most skilled politician he's ever seen. And the guy was very complimentary of Obama. But he said, look at what he did in 2024. Remember how he got sort of screechy and he was like yelling at the black guys who weren't voting for Kamala?
Yeah, and he was saying, it's the brothers.
Right.
That's what he said.
Right. And he was yelling at the black guys because they're not supporting Kamala, blah, 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 blah. And I thought to myself, you know what? He's got a point there. I mean, Barack just sort of laid an egg on this whole, 2024. Hold on a minute. On this whole 2024 election thing because of the fact that he really did come off as screechy and preachy and, that kind of thing. And to the point where his power is gone. And I thought that was interesting because.
Yeah, that's true. And boy, did they come all out for Kamala or what?
Right. And to the point where it's like the same thing. It's like the Biden thing where he's on, he was on. Did you see the takes of Charlemagne the God on The View last week where he got into a little bit of a.
I did. Yeah. On The View. I did see him on there and he was fantastic. I watched like a whole, I think it was about a 7-minute clip where he was arguing with Whoopi.
Yes,
I saw that.
Yes, and Whoopi's taken it. Well, I mean, once again, it's this thing. It's like, okay, you go into, let's say you're a Hispanic person, and you walk into a law firm, and there's 3 attorneys there. There's a white attorney, there's a black attorney, and there's a Hispanic attorney. Are you going to say, I want that Hispanic attorney? Are you going to say, which one of you is the best attorney? Show me the cases you've won, and then I'll pick. Get what I'm saying?
I do. I would ask for Ashley Awning because she's Hispanic. But anyway, but I get your point, Brad. Yeah, you would think that people would want a meritocracy, right?
Right, exactly. But anyway, the whole thing was interesting. Okay, now here's what I got: a lot of NPR stuff this weekend. Okay, they have a dedicated, we're not talking about a KWMU St. Louis Public Radio reporter. They have, I don't know if she's still here or not, they have a dedicated reporter doing reports from Missouri on which topic. This is an NPR reporter. Once again, a network reporter, not a local KCUR reporter.
I'm guessing, is it abortion?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Brad, actually, let me correct myself. Reproductive health care.
Yeah, there we go. Okay.
It's reproductive health care.
And she's interviewing all these people from Planned Parenthood and talking about. Matter of fact, it's the interesting aspect of NPR reporting where they have to paint not only the word picture but the sound picture. And
they do a great job. Ambient noise, right, Brad? That's what you guys call it in the industry.
Well, our nat sound, whatever you want to call it, natural sound. Okay. So, and she had to have the doctor going into the explaining they have three, I guess they call them operating rooms. This was at the Central West End place. And they have three operating rooms. They're getting busy making sure everything is back in good graces and everything's working properly. And more importantly, she's going through the drawers where they have the medication and showing that in some of the drawers the medications are full, but in other drawers they're still waiting for some of the medication. And the whole gist of this report was those mean, nasty, wascally Republicans, even though we passed this constitutional amendment and it took effect, I believe, Friday. Wasn't that the day it was supposed to take effect?
Yeah, the 5th. So what was the 5th? I guess that would be Thursday, Brad?
5th was Wednesday. 7th was, no, you're right. 5th was Thursday. 6th was Friday. 7th was Saturday because that was the Pearl Harbor Day was Saturday. So, yes, and I'm thinking to myself, and then this was like a 10-minute report. And then me listening to too many hours of NPR of the weekend while I'm driving away, they had this reporter file numerous little, I guess you'd call it, packages throughout the top of the hour and bottom of the hour newscast on NPR where she was talking about what's going on in Missouri, blah, 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 blah. And I'm going like, oh, man, if I don't know. I mean, once again, if NPR was funded by Elon Musk, I'd say, Elon, knock yourself out. Do whatever you want with your money. But once again, it's public money. And I've gotten arguments with NPR people. Matter of fact, I had a woman who I had a friendship with, and it ended because you know how it ended?
She listened to our show.
No, I found she told me, and this was like a hidden secret. She'd never told me before. I'd known her for years. And she said, I'm on the St. Louis Public Radio board. And I went,
oh,
really?
Nice, yeah. And you mocked her for that.
No, I said to her, why are you getting rid of these jobs in broadcasting? And she looked at me, she goes, what are you talking about? I go, well, there used to be a full-time staff at KMST, which originally was KMNR in Rolla. And there used to be a full-time staff of people at the radio station in Quincy, which I believe is WQUB, which is owned by Quincy College or something up there in Quincy, Illinois. But those people are all gone because now you're just simulcasting St. Louis Public Radio on those stations. And she got mad at me. And we finished our conversation. I've never spoken with her since. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, well, her loss, right, Brad?
I don't know.
Well, no, I think it is. I mean, I'm not flattering you, but I think it's her. Like, if she wants to be that way, that's fine.
Well, I'd see.
And also, yeah, I mean, you don't need to have that in your life. And also, let's get back to NPR covering this though. There are very few areas where if you were a progressive, so the only people who are going to work at St. Louis Public Radio, with the possible exception of Jason Rosenbaum, are people who are going to be raging progressives and angry feminists and let's get even with white people crowd. One of the only silver linings, particularly in the Midwest that you've seen, was Kansas's pro-choice victory a few years ago and Amendment 3 passing in 2024. So you're going to put a focus on that because can you imagine if NPR folks had to just cover Donald Trump's victory for another day? Like they'd be apoplectic. So it's one of their things, and it can allow them to say, we're focused on health care and reproductive rights and a woman or anyone who identifies as a woman's right to choose, Brad. We're putting our focus on the important issues.
Well, can I give you more of my NPR recap?
Yeah, please do. Because Lord knows I don't listen.
There was a show.
I mean, you're like the crash test dummy who gets put through all this.
I am, and I have the scars to prove it. Okay, and I have those circles with the plus signs embedded on my head. Okay, so they can track my head movement. Okay, so there's a show that runs on NPR called On the Media. Have you ever heard this one before?
No, I haven't.
And it's a weekly show. It used to be hosted by this, I think she's still there. Well, she is still there. I think her name was Brooke Gladstone and another dude. And it was interesting because the other dude got thrown out because of the fact that I read the story on Inside Radio that he got thrown out because apparently there were too many sexual harassment allegations against him from the staff. I believe that was how the thing went.
Well, are you saying there was another Don Marsh in there, miss?
Yeah, no, let's say, if you don't know the crazy story, Don Marsh quit at NPR when he was called into the boss's office because he complimented the looks of who was that? Who was the guest again?
Former, I think she was 72. Karen Foss.
Karen Foss, yes.
Peer in the broadcasting industry.
Right. He complimented
and he said, "You look great."
Yes, you look great, which is not allowed in St. Louis Public Radio. You can't say, "Wow, you look great." Can't allow that. Okay, so they did like a 20-minute piece. And I pulled something very important, which I came back to the office and I typed it up and on big letters and put it and printed it out on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. And I put it on my wall here in the studio. Okay. And I'll get to that in a minute. But his whole piece was on the similarities of all the picks that Trump is doing for his cabinet. And you know what the similarities are, John?
What are they?
All these people are profiting from things they're doing on social media or selling products. And he goes through the whole thing. Dr. Oz does this. Pete Hegseth does that. Look at Donald Trump. He's got his own shoes, his own. Matter of fact, there's an article over the weekend that talks about he's now got a new fragrance. And you haven't heard the ads on. I've heard them on both what is it called? The
Patriot and Real Talk.
Right. The Patriot and 97.1, where he comes out, "Hi, this is your favorite president, Donald Trump." And then I was like, man, I love this guy. Your favorite president, Donald Trump.
That's great.
No presumptuousness there. Okay. So anyway, they go through this whole thing about how all these people have in common that they're shills for products. Pete Hegseth is shilling for this, and so-and-so is shilling for that. And even to the point where they brought up, and I don't know if you remember this or not, they brought up the thing where Kellyanne Conway got her wrist slapped or her hand slapped because when she was on an interview show, she was acting as an official spokesperson for the Trump administration. She started talking about how Ivanka Trump's new clothesline was so good and you should go out and buy it. Do you remember that story?
I don't remember that,
yes.
But I completely believe it.
She
Yeah.
got in trouble for that because you're not allowed to do that. Okay, so he's going through this whole thing, and what's interesting is then he summarizes what he's talking about, and he says 3 words, and these are 3 words that you and I need to live by. Attention is currency. Attention is currency. And the point being that, and it's like he's likening this to the modern day influencers. Okay, the modern day influencers where attention is currency. Now, what's interesting about this is, remember, John, I'm a real boring guy. One of my favorite things in life used to be, and I eat a lot of meals by myself, and I hate to admit that, but probably in a week, if I eat like 7 days, I'm down. Some days I'm only down to 1 meal. Most of the times it's 2 meals. But if let's say I eat 2 meals a day and times 7, that's 14 meals. It's not unusual for me to eat 10, 11, or 12, maybe even 13 or 14 of those meals by myself. So
that sounds like heaven, Brad. You remember what it was like to be a parent. Go ahead.
Yes. One of my favorite things I went to, there was a couple of restaurants, and this is maybe 30 years ago, where I go to a restaurant, and I picked these restaurants because I would have lunch there because they had a newspaper box outside with the Wall Street Journal in it. And I would pay my 50 cents or whatever it was, or a quarter or 75 cents. I can't remember how much I paid. It went up through the years. And I would buy myself a Wall Street Journal. I would sit at the counter. This restaurant had a bunch of seats, but I had a few counter seats. I would sit at the counter. I would order my hamburger and French fries and my Diet Coke, and I would read the Wall Street Journal. And I remember reading a Wall Street Journal article probably 30 years ago, and the title of the article was How Influencers Change Things in Our Economy. And this is 30 years ago. And the example they gave was, the article starts out about, and I can't remember who the basketball player was, but he played for one of the NBA teams, Boston Celtics or something like that. And they talked about how when the young guys on the team started making money, they went to this guy because of the fact that he was a very wise and prudent investor, and he was an influencer as far as financials were concerned. The young boys, the young men, the young dudes on the team would come to him and say, "Hey, I'm starting to make some really serious money. How should I invest it?" And he was the influencer on the team. And they talked about there was another influencer on the team who, while these other young guys on the team wanting to go out and buy, their Bugattis or their Lamborghinis, their Ferraris, he would say, you don't want one of those. They're really a pain in the butt. They're expensive to maintain. An oil change is going to cost you $400 or $500. You need to buy a Toyota Corolla. And he was an influencer in cars. So the influencer thing for me has been in my mind for years and years and years and years and years. And now you hear it all over the place, the influencers. So that's and this on the media piece was a hit piece against Trump and all his people, because they're not real people. They're not people that we can trust. They're influencers. And
you don't want, Lord knows you can't trust somebody that has influence over others.
Right. But they were making the point that the reason they're behind these products and these services because they're getting paid. And I thought to myself, dude, if you weren't taking a paycheck from NPR, what would you be doing right now?
Be working for a for-profit.
Right.
And Brad, you're a big fan of Gary Vee. Gary Vee's big theme for the last probably between 6 to 9 months he has a new book out called Day Trading Attention. So he's been talking for at least 9 months about how attention is currency and how you, as an advertiser and a marketer, people have a limited amount of attention and you're just day trading it. You're trying to get in, you're trying to get them real quick to pay attention to something for a brief period of time and take action.
I couldn't agree with that more, and I have heard some of his talks on that. And the interesting aspect of this, one of the things I always pitch is, this sounds like old nerd stuff, but if you go back to the 60s, there was this interesting guy who was head of the FCC. His name was Newton Minnow. Now, when you're named Newton Minnow, you got to be a nerd, right? You can't be
I think so.
You can't be a WWE guy or something like that. Anyway, he was the head of the FCC, and he was tabbed to be the guest speaker, the keynote speaker for the National Association of Broadcasters television station owners and producers and general managers, their dinner out in Las Vegas, and he gave the speech that ticked them all off because his speech was titled, "Television is a Vast Wasteland." Television is a vast wasteland, and he chronicled why television was a vast wasteland. This is like 63 or 64 or something like that. I'll look at the exact date. And the important thing he mentioned was, look what the television industry's done to our American society. They've reduced the attention span down to 3.5 minutes. Do you know what the current estimate of the attention span of the American public is now?
A nanosecond.
I think it's like 12 seconds. So
Yeah. And, the conventional wisdom is, if you're scrolling on TikTok or Instagram, you got about 3 seconds to keep them, or they're just keep using their thumbs and scroll.
Now, once again, coming up in C block, we're in B block right now, C block, I'm going to tell you, if Pete Hegseth does make it to Secretary of Defense, I'm telling you what he should do, but he won't. And I'll give the perfect example, which happened over the weekend. And all I have to say is, if I were Secretary of Defense, I could cut the budget by billions of dollars and be more effective fighting force, but yet nobody will listen to Brad because I don't know what I'm talking about. But all you have to do is look at the news footage from the weekend and you'll understand exactly what I'm going to say. That's coming up next. John, can you wait?
I can't wait.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's C-O-M-B-E-S-T, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?